Hello, RACER fans. Robin Miller, Marshall Pruett, David Malsher. Wrapping up the first day at Houston, where we didn't have qualifying because we had a little bit of problem with the racetrack because we had the San Jose jump. Do you remember the San Jose jump?
I filmed the San Jose jump from behind just because I wanted to have it to show my kids. Incredible.
So I give Martin Thake and Tony Kanaan a lot of credit. They didn't get to start working on this team till last Sunday night, David, as soon as the game went into overtime. So to put a track together in basically 5.5 days is pretty tough. It's a pretty tough assignment. It's just Dario said, I wish we'd have had a track walk yesterday because we might have been able to avoid that problem.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if the thing, they had 96 hours to sort this out. There's always a severe underestimation of, if you drive over it in a road car, it gives you no idea as to how it's going to be in something that's got suspension movement like that. So, I think the temporary chicane is ugly as sin, but it has helped today to slow them down. But it means that the boys are going to be hitting the track angle with qualifying on a new corner altogether.
Yeah, but I think, the last races here, the Champ Car races, there were two good places to pass. I think there's two good places to pass here. At least one good place.
Passing's a bit of a question, I have to admit. For those of you who watched the 2006 and 7 races, this is the same facility, it's the same layout, but it's a different track in that they have closed the radius on a lot of corners. This used to be a flowing circuit. Now, you talk to Will Power, Pagenaud, Bourdais, all the guys who raced here back then in Champ Car and have come back, they're massively disappointed because the radiuses are narrow. It doesn't have much of a flow. The passing opportunities are limited. So I'm not trying to have a negative outlook on the race, but the drivers themselves are saying, we can go in short bursts, but we sure as heck can't really flow through these corners and try and set people up. Be curious to see how that changes tomorrow without the tires on the front straight.
All right, so we've given the racetrack people their dues, and we're going to have qualifying in the morning, the first race tomorrow afternoon. We're going to qualify Sunday morning for the second race on Sunday afternoon, which should be pretty cool. I like that. But today's big news was not so much Tony Kanaan finally admitting, yes, he's going to Ganassi. The big news was Chip Ganassi's dumping Honda again to go to Chevrolet, which to me is, we heard this rumor for the last 2 months, but I don't think anybody really thought maybe it was going to happen.
No, I heard those rumors when Chip was, struggling in the first half of the year, but then they started winning everything, be it, Dixon's three wins and Charlie winning at Mid-Ohio. I think it's a slightly strange decision because, Honda at the moment, giving Chevy a pretty hard time with just a single turbo. Next year they get twin turbos. It seems a funny time to change, but I'd really like to know from Chip how long this deal has been in the works.
Well, Marshall talks to engine guys all the time, and it does, from the practical standpoint, Chip's got Chevrolet and NASCAR. It makes sense that he wants to have Chevrolet and everything. I understand that. But the timing of this, Honda didn't find out till way past the 11th hour.
Yeah, they had 12 hours notice per se. This caught a lot of people by surprise. Art Sanseer, who's the head of Honda Performance Development, they actually had to wait for him to arrive here at the track after the announcement to get a quote from him. That's how much of a springing this was. People were not expecting this from the Honda camp per se. I've expected this, frankly, since Indy last year. Even though Dario won the race, Chip's level of frustration and his vocalness, his frustration, really surprised me. We all know Chip is maybe not one of the most flowery people on the planet Earth, but him letting fly some of his very ardent beliefs that Honda was not bringing what they should to the table, that stuck out to me last year. And so we've all been hearing the same thing, the same rumors, and that was the first thing I was going to come and chase down here, find out exactly where that was at, and we've found out. What I find interesting, though, and this is maybe a bit of a sidebar, is this is an expensive sport for the engine manufacturers. We know that with 24 cars in the field, Honda has 12, Chevy has 12, might be one or two different depending on entries, but bottom line, it's about even, a split. Each manufacturer spends about $500,000 per lease of their own money to subsidize the lease. So teams might be paying $695,000 per lease. Well, each manufacturer is putting in another $500,000 for each one of those. It's one thing when you're splitting things even. When you now look at 4 cars being added to Chevy's roster, it's also a big hit. So while it's interesting to see this choice, I'm also concerned that financially, this is something that's going to cost Chevy.
David, do you think, I mean, the logical thing is, I think Marshall's going to do something on it for the weekend's over, is, okay, the 3 major power teams are all in Chevrolet now. So who has the bargaining chip? Andretti, obviously, doesn't he?
Yeah, I'd have thought so. I think Andretti going to Honda makes a lot of sense. Between us, we've discussed it a bit with, him getting Honda Canada money to replace GoDaddy. But Andretti and Honda have had a wonderful history together. There's a long-running romance there. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear it, but I wouldn't be surprised to hear Honda pretend to not be too bothered about it as well.
Right. Well, I mean, I had dinner Tuesday and Wednesday night with Kanaan and Hinchcliffe and Dario, and I can tell you that Kanaan and Dario had no idea that they were not going to be Honda drivers, because Kanaan even text messaged Team McHale and said, hey, I'm coming back to the team, and, that was all kind of... All right, so let's go from here, fellas. So the big domino, it was going to be Hinchcliffe or Kanaan, whoever was first. Kanaan's gone. Marshall knows. I've written something. I didn't name Jimmy Vasser, but everybody kind of knows now Vasser's the guy that's trying to get James to sign on the dotted line. What's his other option?
A little place called Andretti Autosport. We know that KV, they have sponsors that are interested and willing, and they want a big name. We wrote about that this week. Hinch certainly fits that bill. They've also spoken to Bourdais. They've spoken to Oriole. They're talking to a lot of people, frankly, setting up some dominoes to see which one falls. Andretti, don't count Andretti Autosport out. They have been talking to some sponsors for a while to replace GoDaddy. Not all of them have come through, but I do know that Hinch and Andretti Autosport have been very transparent with each other at this time, with the team telling them, hey, we think it's going to take 2.5 to 3 weeks to find out whether we will have the money to keep you. And him saying, well, the KV guys, they've given me a little bit of a shorter deadline to answer whether I'm going to sign. So I don't want to call it a race, but there is some pressure there. Do you hold out to stay with a team that is a championship-winning team, or do you go to the one that is not at that place yet, but is offering you a contract? So they're being open. Andretti will tell them if they don't have the money to keep him, they'll let him know immediately. And Hinch will also tell them same thing. Hey, I have to sign. So they're being straight up about this. I just know that for Hinch, if we're looking at what's best for him, it's hard to beat. Going anywhere other than Andretti Autosport.
You got Craig Hampson and him. They've had great chemistry. Here's the thing: a month ago, it looked like Hinch was going to be. There was going to be this great battle between Andretti and Ganassi for him. So he was like blown away. Man, I didn't have a ride 3 years ago, and now there's a bidding war for me. And then suddenly 2 weeks later, he's got nothing. And Graham Rahal was talking to me the other day and said, when you've got a concrete offer right there in front of you for real money for 2 years, I'd take it. And I think it. Graham waited once on Newman Haas, and there wasn't anything at the end of the rainbow. So what should he do?
What, Hinch?
Hinch.
I'd take the definite thing. I know it sounds kind of dull, but I think him at KV could be fantastic for both KV and Hinch, because if he goes there and is seen to make the difference between elevating them to being a front runner, that does his reputation even greater. He might not have initially he may not have the degree of guaranteed sustained success, but if he gets a couple of wins with KV, and KV, apart from the 500, apart from the biggest race in the world, they hadn't won for some time, I think it does Hinch a power of good, and he's still got plenty of years to then, maybe land back with Andretti, but now being able to say, hey, you pay me, $2 million or whatever.
I was talking to Eric Cowden, who's been Tony Kanaan's longtime friend, engineer, confidant, and I said, are you going with him to, will you go wherever Tony goes? Will you go on Ganassi? And he says, I got to be honest. He goes, I don't have anything laid out firm for 2014 yet. I might go there. I might stay here. I'm not sure. So, I think everybody just kind of thinks it's taken for granted that Kanaan's going to take all those guys with him. I'm not necessarily sure that's going to happen.
I do know that some of his current team members are certainly looking around. I think there's a lack of clarity. I know that Tony has his core. We know that he basically assembled from his 2004 championship winning team and would not want to let them go. At the same time, Ganassi has not kept a fourth car staff that was used to run Graham, for example. There haven't just been that extra team sitting around waiting for a car to come in, so they do need to build up. It would make sense that they would pull over as many of the people that want to go with Tony. I also know that Tony will want to bring some of them with him. Is it a guarantee Cowden will go? Not necessarily, but if Hinch does end up going to KV, I think that they will certainly be in a good position, but I think yet again they'll be in a rebuilding phase. Unfortunately, that has been the KV story forever. Get some momentum, rebuild. Momentum, rebuild. It's not like Hinch would be stepping into a team that has been dynamite and challenging for podiums at any race this year other than the 500.
That's why I'd take.
I think that's what will make, that will make or break Hinch's reputation. If he can make KV into that kind of consistent podium contender and occasional victory contender, I think that would be awesome because, TK has struggled there, and how much of it's down to car, how much of it's down to driver, maybe all will be revealed if James gets in there. I think he should go for it. Also, without any slight against James, I think Andretti Autosport with Ryan Hunter-Reay as your lead guy, I don't think they can go wrong. They've still got an ace in the hole right there.
Sure. All right. Now, the last thing we're going to say before we end this little chat is that Mike Lanigan's the promoter here. He's really kind of nervous because it's football season, Saturday and Sunday in Houston, and it's probably not going to be the great crowd he was hoping for. But next year, this race is going to be in late June. It's probably going to be at night. There's not going to have a conflict with football. And then 2015, this might even be the first race of the year, like in January or February when we might have 20 or 22 races. So it's going to be 88 and hot tomorrow. It's still going to be a hell of a show. We'll talk to you kids after the first race is over.